Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Well, it seems that there is a staggering number of people across the world who are completely unprepared to be presented with the truth about the extraterrestrial reality. And I don't know, it's unclear whether UFO disclosure would be a good thing for these people. So that's something we're going to talk about. But before we even get into that, I think we should try to get an understanding of the various groups of people that exist on this planet and where they fall in the hierarchy of having knowledge about extraterrestrials. Well, anyway, this is a hierarchy chart that I put together that lists six categories humans fall under when it comes to knowledge about UFOs and the extraterrestrial presence on Earth. Now, starting from top to bottom, if you're at the top, then you know as much as any human could know. And that would mean that you are in the control group. So, number one is the control group. And what is it? It's a deputation composed of officials from weapons manufacturers, the Pentagon, and scientific and intelligence communities that has been read in on all aspects concerning the phenomenon. And it's also unclear whether presidents have access to all information related to extraterrestrial reality, however. So, if you're in the control group, that means that you are in possession of data and information. You are in possession of all the goods, the best, the top of the heap. You know a lot more than anybody else on this planet. And I would venture the guess that this control group probably consists of you'd be lucky to fill up a McDonald's with the number of people that are actually part of the control group, the people that have access to everything, to all information related to the biology of extraterrestrials, to the crash retrievals and what has been learned from crash retrievals, and how far humans have reached so far with reverse engineering projects. So there has to be a certain group of people, and that's the control group, that knows just about all there is to know at this point in the human experience. So if you're part of the control group, congratulations. I'm very jealous. Because a lot of us in the different categories are wanting to get closer to that top level. And the other thing I want to point out is that we really don't know. I mean, it seems about presidents. I mean, in the past, presidents could have been part of the could have been had as much information as the control group. But whether that's true these days, we just don't know. I mean, it seems like you would have to imagine that someone like George H.W. Bush knew everything. I mean, because he was the director of the CIA at one point, and you would think that he knows everything, right? Or he knew everything. Now, whether people, other presidents like Bill Clinton, Obama, Trump, or Joe Biden, whether they know everything, that's we don't know. But if they're not in the control, if they don't have control group level information on extraterrestrials, they most certainly will have level 2 information with regard to extraterrestrials. We're going to get into that right now. So number 2, which is broke down into 2 subcategories, A and B. So A, compartmentalized employees. These are people who are part of different teams studying the many aspects of the phenomenon, or who play a role in recovering crashed alien craft and or bodies. While these people are fully aware that the extraterrestrial presence is real, the information they are read in on applies only to the individual area of study that is assigned to each specific team. For example, members of one team might only possess knowledge of propulsion systems found in recovered extraterrestrial craft. Members of another team might only possess knowledge of the biology of deceased extraterrestrials recovered during crash retrievals. Or members of a recovery team might only know that extraterrestrial craft and their pilots exist because they are responsible for collecting materials from crash sites. So that's, if you're one of those people, right? If you're working for the control group, you're going to have some knowledge, but not all knowledge. That's how it's going to be set up. It's going to be compartmentalized. And then the subcategory B, some politicians and some high-level administration employees. If presidents aren't included in the top level of the hierarchy, they would certainly be included in the second level and have some knowledge about the phenomenon. This applies to other top government officials who, while not totally briefed on the phenomenon, are given some information because of national security implications. So yes, there has to be some people within the government, elected politicians and or administration directors in different departments who are somewhat briefed on this. They're not given everything, but they have to be given a certain amount in the event something happens with the extraterrestrial reality that affects the country or the world at some point in the future. So that you would have to imagine that some of these people are given a modicum of information related to the phenomenon. But again, they're still not as you want to be close to number one. I'd rather be in that number one category. Okay, and number three, where I would believe a lot of people would fall into number three who listen to this podcast. And this is again, broken down into two categories. A, experiencers. This includes people, civilians, and service members whose close encounters with extraterrestrial craft and or the alien occupants that pilot them provided undeniable personal evidence that the phenomenon is 100% real. So yes, there are some people out there who have seen these things up close, and that was all they needed, and now they know. And I'm one of those people. I fall into that category, and there are millions more people who also fall into that category. And then the other category under number three is B, researchers. This includes a wide range of people, such as the most ardent researchers who spend much of their lives studying the phenomenon and producing books, articles, and or documentary films that reveal the fruits of their labors. This group also includes people who have benefited from the works put forth by researchers by fully educating themselves on the history and current affairs related to the phenomenon. Everyone in this subcategory, although they might not have had personal experiences, have reached the proper conclusion that there's an extraterrestrial presence on Earth. So yes, I would imagine that probably a vast majority of people who listen to my podcast and are probably in the number three section. And then next on the hierarchy scale, number four, the on the fence crowd. These are people who are interested in the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials, but are not yet convinced if any of it is real. Now, I know people like this. I know people out there who say, yeah, I think it's possible. It's hard to imagine that there might not be, but I'm just not so sure. There's a lot of people like that out there, and they want to know more, and they actually actively try to get more answers, but they're still not there yet. Sometimes some of them do finally get there, but some of them don't. But they're trying. They're trying their best. It's just, for some people, it's very hard to believe. A lot of that has to do with the stigmatization that has been in effect since the 1950s. Okay, and then the number five level. If you're in the number five level, that means you're a skeptic. So the skeptics, these are people who publicly say they don't believe extraterrestrials are present on Earth, yet find it necessary to seek out the comfort of echo chambers constructed by popular UFO debunkers. The need to be regularly assured by debunkers that there's no truth to the assertion that extraterrestrials are here is something skeptics apparently require to tamp down the fears buried deep in their subconscious minds. In other words, a part of them has accepted the reality, but they don't want to believe it because of the fear it elicits in them. As for debunkers, some are merely skeptics with loud social media megaphones, while others, like the late astronomer Dr. Donald Menzel, serve as control group assets who deliberately spread misinformation, lies, and incomplete analyses in order to help keep the secrecy lid screwed on tight. So yes, I believe that a lot of skeptics actually deep down actually do accept this reality, and but they're trying to block that from their minds. They don't want to believe it. They're afraid of it, and I think that's who these people are. Now, also remember too that even the hardest skeptic out there will actually believe that there is life on other worlds. They'll at least concede that. But if you're in the number six category, you will not concede that. And that's very problematic. And so we're going to get into the number six category and what that says. So, number six, the blissfully ignorant. This is a group of people who are completely unaware of any aspect related to the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomenon. Many of these people have never been exposed to any book, online discussion, radio program, article, essay, news report, documentary film, or television special about the UFO and alien topic. Those who have been exposed apparently allowed any information presented to them to go in one brain cell and out the other. While many of these people are aware of a basic extraterrestrial narrative, they have never once considered there was any veracity behind the discussion. Many of these people do not understand, for instance, why a government would want to cover up what it knows about extraterrestrials and crashed UFOs. Any sort of disclosure would catch these people completely off guard. For whatever reason, the UFO subject is something they never considered or thought about much, so any event that destroys the veil of secrecy, whether a government announcement or extraterrestrial demonstration, would completely turn the world upside down for this group of people. It should be noted that while many of these people possess intelligence in various other facets of human existence, they are unfortunately inexcusably dumb when it relates to the extraterrestrial question. So yes, walking among us are dum-dums, and who have no idea, completely oblivious. So this would be a gigantic slap across the face to these people if they were to suddenly be exposed to the reality that there's an extraterrestrial presence here. And these people, unfortunately, and I think this is a result. The reason we have this, the reason these people exist, is because of the governments of the world that have covered this up and stigmatized it for so many decades. Because this is where we are now. There's no education. These people are completely uneducated about it. This is something that's not brought up in schools. It's not taught in schools. It hasn't been taught in schools. I mean, this is something that people they're so ignorant about it that when they hear this, they think it's only the product of a science fiction movie or something to that effect. And you know how I know this? Because I used to be in the sixth category. I used to be blissfully ignorant when I was growing up and close to my adulthood, like throughout my teenage years until I was probably around to 20 years old when I finally started thinking otherwise. At one point in my life, I was blissfully ignorant. And who do I blame for that? I don't blame myself. I don't think you can blame these people either, because again, this is a subject that for a long time was laughed at, scoffed at, made fun of, stigmatized. And who started all of that? The Robertson panel and the Air Force back in the 1950s, as we all know. So there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're a part of the blissfully ignorant group, right? But unfortunately, it's up to other people, I guess, to try to get you out of there, because it's not the one place you want to be. You don't want to be completely caught with your pants down when the extraterrestrials finally show up, or something happens, or a disclosure happens. You don't want to be like completely caught off guard and feel like a complete idiot for not realizing that there might be something to this all these years. But yeah, again, I was in that category once, and I'm sure a lot of other people who are listening to this podcast were in that category, where you're completely ignorant to the reality. In fact, of course, as I've always talked about, when I had my experience when I was a kid with an extraterrestrial, I mean, I thought it was the devil. I had no idea. It took me 10 years to realize what it was. That's how blissfully ignorant I was. I mean, so blissfully ignorant people could sometimes see something or experience something, but they still don't put two and two together. It might take them time, or they might not ever put it together. So there are people out there, and again, it's not their fault, right? It's not their fault, and they haven't been exposed enough to any sort of information, or they haven't been educated whatsoever. This is something that's not talked about in schools, right? Unfortunately. I mean, there should be at least a theory class on it, over these years when you're a kid, but there's not. And so these people are out there, and they're in great numbers. And we're going to talk about how great those numbers are when we come back. Okay, we are back. Now, in 2021, Pew Research Center had put out a poll results for that asked Americans questions and with regards to UFOs. And we're going to go through this poll and then break those numbers down and then talk about what those numbers mean. Okay, now, most Americans say intelligent life exists outside Earth and don't see UFOs as a major security threat. That was the overall consensus of these polls, okay? Now, there were different questions that they asked people. Percentage of United States adults who say their best guess is that intelligent life does or does not exist on other planets. Now, of those people that responded, 65% said intelligent life does exist on other planets, but 34% said intelligent life does not exist on other planets, while 2% refused to provide an answer. But think about that. 34% of people polled in just 2 years ago said that intelligent life doesn't exist. Their best guess is that it doesn't exist on other planets. So that's 34%. That's when you do the math, back in 2021, the population of the United States was 331.9 million. So with that in mind, that constitutes about 112,846,000 Americans actually don't believe that life exists on other planets. That's just that question. So imagine that number. If they believe that life doesn't exist on other planets, then obviously, naturally, they're not going to believe that there's anything here, right? So they're completely not here. They're not there. To them, this is a non-thing, right? They don't believe. 34%. That's a big number. And so I want to point that out with that. I mean, I would go out on a limb, and if you were to poll the world, the numbers will probably be somewhere around the same, right? So if you take 34% of the people in the world, right? So that right now there's over 8 billion people on this planet. So that means that to be exact, right now, 8.036 billion people on the planet. So if you were to take that 34%, and that means and times it into that 8.036 billion, that gives you 2.73 billion of people who don't believe that there's life on other planets. That's 2.73 billion people potentially. Now, we don't know this for a fact, but if the original poll that was conducted in the United States suggests that if you're that a high amount of people just don't believe that extraterrestrials, not only are they not here, but they don't believe that they're out there either. So that's very upsetting and disturbing, especially considering the fact that they are here, and these people have no inkling. They're completely, again, blissfully ignorant to this whole subject, to the whole discussion, apparently. Now, there was some other aspects to this poll. Another question was, percentage of U.S. adults who say that UFOs reported by people in the military are either definitely, probably not, or probably not, or definitely not evidence of extraterrestrial life outside Earth. So the 11% say that UFOs reported by people in the military are definitely evidence of extraterrestrial life outside Earth. Now, before we continue here, I just want to point out that the question wasn't clear enough here in a way, because you're saying that just UFOs. I think all of us agree that all UFOs reported are not going to be extraterrestrials. They could be misidentifications. They could be some natural phenomenon. I think we all agree to that. So this question really wasn't clear, but I would imagine that most people were probably thinking in their minds when they were asked this question that UFOs meant extraterrestrial. That's what I would imagine, because most people do put UFOs and extraterrestrials into the same category. So anyway, so definitely 11% of U.S. adults say that UFOs reported by the military are evidence of ET, intelligent life outside of Earth. And then probably was 40%. So 40% of people said probably. And probably, I think that's probably I think I'd probably have to say probably too, just based on the question. If you're being truthful, I would have to say probably, because not all are going to be extraterrestrials, but definitely some. Probably not, though, 36%. 36% probably not. And then definitely not 11%. So basically, that's 47% of people don't either definitely not or probably not, right? They don't agree. They don't think that any UFOs that are seen by military people have anything to do with extraterrestrials. That's a big number. And then 2% refuse to provide an answer. And then the final question that they have here on this Pew Research Center poll was the percentage of United States adults who say that UFOs are not a threat or a minor threat or a major threat to national security. So 51% said not a threat, 36% said a minor threat, and 10% said a major threat. So again, you got to think about the question again. They're asking about UFOs. So even if you're someone who doesn't believe in extraterrestrial life, you're still going to believe in UFOs. So if you're asked the question that are UFOs a threat, well, the people who don't believe in extraterrestrials might be who might have answered in that 36% a minor threat, right? They might have answered in that one because they do believe that there are UFOs out there, although they don't think that they're extraterrestrial. They think that they could be coming from other countries, Russian drones, Chinese spy balloons. So there you go. So, but I think the biggest part of this, the biggest takeaway for me was that first question: the percentage of U.S. adults who say their best guess is that intelligent life does or does not exist on other planets. And if you don't believe that extraterrestrials exist, that their intelligent life exists out there on other planets, then obviously you don't believe that any of them would be coming here. So that's a big, giant number, 34%. You're talking well over 100 million people here in the United States, and potentially 2.7 billion people across the world. I mean, I guess if you're going to come up with a number and you base it on the polling that was done just in the United States alone, you could come to that conclusion. So we're talking about $2.7 billion or 2.7 billion people, and that means that you have to wonder now. Some of the things that are happening right now are starting to make sense in a way when you really think about these numbers. These are staggering numbers to me, that there are ignorant people out there, totally ignorant people, and there are. I've heard them talking online. I've seen them. I've heard them talking in real life. There are people out there who think it's absolutely crazy, and they don't consider it at all. They're beyond skeptics. They're just blissfully ignorant. Like I said, I think a skeptic is more of the kind of people that I view as constantly having to be reassured that there's nothing going on, but really they're hiding it. They're skeptical of it. They're wanting it to be fake. But then there's just these people that are just living in a la land, and there's a lot of them. So you have to start wondering now. Maybe this might help explain what's been going on here the past 6 years now. Why this information was leaked from the Pentagon. There obviously is a group of people who probably are aware of these numbers and aware of how blissfully ignorant a lot of people are in this world, and that they feel it's time to get that truth out there. Now, whether we ever get it from people in the government or not still remains to be seen, although there are a lot of people running around right now saying that something is going to happen. Okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm very hopeful. But what happens when it does come out? I guess that's the question. If it was to happen with the Band-Aid, ripping the Band-Aid off all at once, like I always hope and dream for, right? How do these people react? These blissfully ignorant people that are all among us, these dum-dums, complete dum-dums, with regards to UFOs and extraterrestrials. What happens to them if the Band-Aid's ripped off one day? One day you wake up and there's an announcement made, or the aliens do something that just ends the whole debate. Right? What happens to these people? How do they react? I think, surprisingly, right, I think a great number of them actually will be okay. I mean, I've seen how many documentaries have you watched over the years where you see people talking about aliens who experienced a UFO or alien beings who tell you, I never thought about this before. I never believed in it before. I never would have even dreamed that it could have been true. But now I have no choice. I saw it and it's real. I experienced it and it's real. There's so many people out there like that, right? So many. So I think most of these people actually will be okay. I think, disclose, it's not going to be tough for them because humans are tough for the most part. We're tough. We can deal with some things. They're going to, of course, right? A great number of that same group, right? The blissfully ignorant are going to come out and be totally freaked out. But again, I think they'll get over it. I think the human race is ready. I think we can get over this quickly. The people that are totally in the dark right now. Now, there was another poll I want to talk about here before we end this whole discussion. And this was a YouGov poll. And this was from 2022. Actually, this is just from last year. And I'll leave the links for all these things so you can check them out for yourselves. And it says, this showed that skepticism regarding aliens has declined over the years. And I'll just read a little bit here. It says, a recent YouGov poll finds that skepticism regarding the existence of aliens has declined since the 1990s when, according to a 1996 poll by Newsweek, only 20% of Americans believed that UFOs were more likely to be proof of alien life than to have a natural scientific explanation, 32%. Today, 34% of Americans believe UFOs are likely alien ships or life forms, while only 32% say they're likely to have a scientific explanation. So the numbers have moved over the years. And I guess we're going to keep, those numbers are going to continue to move in the right direction. And but the thing is still, I mean, I think that some of these poll questions, the way they are asked, okay, so this question here, this is how it was asked. It says, do you believe that UFOs are probably alien ships or alien life forms, or that they have some natural scientific explanation? Again, UFOs, when like Stanton Friedman used to say, he pointed this out his whole career. You could go back to the 70s and all the way till right till the end. Now, he passed away in 2019. He would always say this one thing. He would always say some UFOs, and he would say underline it 100 times, underline it 100 times. He tried to make that clear to people, but yet these people doing these polls just still never, that doesn't register to these people. Because it says, again, look at this question. Do you believe that UFOs are probably alien ships or alien life forms, or that they have some natural scientific explanation? And see, again, that these poll questions need to be modified a little bit to say, do you believe that some UFOs are probably alien ships? You know, the word some's not there, so that complicates the responses as far as I'm concerned. Again, Stanton Friedman, that's why he was one of the smartest guys ever on UFOs. Probably, you know, he probably is the smartest guy ever to be talking about UFOs and be interested in it and to write books on it and to research it. I mean, because he always pointed that out. You need to underline that some like 100 times. And anyways, like the question, the answer was in you know, you see the 20% in 1996, 34% in 2022. The don't knows in 1996 was 29%, and that actually increased to 34% in 2022. But in 1996, 51% said natural scientific explanation. Now in 2022, only 32% thinks natural scientific explanation would apply to UFOs. So the numbers are moving in the right direction. We are moving toward you know, consensus here, a better consensus. But again, I think that if based on the numbers from that Pew Research poll, there are many dum-dums walking among us right now who are completely oblivious to the reality, and they're going to be in for a big shocker one of these days. And might be this year. I guess we're going to find out pretty soon, aren't we now? Like I said, there's been a lot of people recently saying that it's right around the corner. There's a lot of people who have contacts in the intelligence community, and they're saying this right around the corner. Something big's coming. Well, we're going to find out if that something big does finally come. Right, we're going to find out how these people, how that large percentage of the world. We're going to find out how they're going to react, so it should be interesting. Anyway, until next time.